The bride humiliated me in front of everyone. My mother joined in, but when my 8-year-old son took the stage and said, "I know something about the bride," no one laughed again. I can still clearly recall when the room fell silent. It wasn't the quiet that comes after a lovely speech or a charming first dance. No, it was the kind that challenges you to cry in public and slaps you across the face. I started at my brother Jason's wedding, my chest still constricted, but my voice calm. The entire audience laughed when his bride labeled me a pitiful single mother while she was on stage. It wasn't the worst part, though. When my mother, Lay, leaned over her champagne glass and spoke loudly enough for the microphone to pick it up, that was the worst part. She's like a discount model with a scratched label. Suddenly, they all started laughing more. Each and every visitor, each fork stopped in mid-stride. Each little laugh developed into cackles that encircled my neck like a gilt scarf. I sat still. My ears were ringing, and I could feel the blood rushing to my cheeks. As I grabbed for my glass of water, my hands shook a little, but I was unable to lift it without spilling. Instead, I balled my fists in the hopes that no one would see how trembling I was. Naturally, my gaze strayed to my younger brother, Jason. He gazed down into his lap while seated at the head table. His jaw moved, but his face remained blank. He gave me a single fleeting glance before turning away, as if he couldn't bear to stare. It broke my heart to see that small flicker of shame in his eyes. Standing behind the garage, where the local girls used to mutter about how strange I was and how shoddy my clothes looked, I felt like I was 8 years old all over again. But it wasn't strangers this time. My family was involved, my own blood. For what purpose? Since I'm a single mother. Because unlike Vanessa, I wasn't wrapped in silk and had flawless diamond cuts. Vanessa, Jason's fiancée or bride-to-be, wearing a pearl white gown, she stood on stage, holding the microphone as if it were a baton in a race she had already won. Her eyes did not meet her smile. It didn't. She had been acting her way through every family gathering for the past year, giving praises that sounded more like insults. Like I was a rescued puppy who only wanted praise for surviving. They called me brave for raising a child alone. Then there was Margaret, my mother. The woman who used to braid my hair before school now treated me as though I were a valueless coupon that had expired. What caused her remarks to pierce so deeply? Why was I still concerned? Was I truly so pitiful? Did they think I would only ever be a single mother? I was sitting motionless. I have a straight back. It was painful to keep the corners of my mouth in a courteous smile. Ethan, my son, sat beside me, both hands gripping a napkin. I made an effort to smile so he wouldn't notice the tears welling up in my eyes as his large brown eyes scanned my face. He muttered, "Mom, why are they laughing at you?" Something in me broke at that question. I started to respond, but nothing came out. How could I respond? That occasionally, the folks who are meant to love you the most are the ones who abandon you first. I wanted to go out. Simply leave. Take Ethan's hand and don't turn around. But Ethan did something that would always stick in my memory before I could even scoot my chair back. He got to his feet. As simple as that, without hesitation, a calm strength that was not commensurate with his age of 8. Then he began to move in the direction of the stage. I should have realized that getting married wouldn't be simple. Even before Vanessa's affront, prior to my mom's mean little prank, prior to the giggling, I had already pretended to belong there for the entire day, acting as though I was someone they could be pleased with. It began that morning when I was attempting to zip up a dress I had purchased on bargain while standing in front of my mirror. It was a bit too formal and too tight, but I needed something that didn't look like I was trying too hard to be a single mother. I turned from side to side, pulled at the fabric, and convinced myself it looked fine. I was checking my cosmetics when Ethan entered. He remarked, "You look like a movie star," with wide eyes. I didn't believe him, but I still grinned. "Thanks, baby," I replied as I softly combed his hair. "You're my favorite hype man." The drive to the location is something I recall. Inquiring as to Uncle Jason's level of anxiety, Ethan was humming in the back seat. My response was probably, "Weddings are scary." I laughed. I didn't express my true feelings, which were that family is more frightening. I used to be close to Jason. He is 5 years younger than me, and once our father departed, I essentially assisted in raising him. I used to hold his hand during thunderstorms, cover for him when he slipped out, and assist him with his homework. It seemed like we were the only ones against the world for years. But after he met Vanessa, things were different. She was polished, positioned. She's the type of woman that enters a room and makes you feel guilty for being there. When he introduced us, I made an effort to be polite. Yes, I did. However, she made it apparent right away that I wasn't her kind of person. During a family meal, she once informed me, "It's so inspiring that you're doing this all on your own." The manner in which people seem to be superior to you in order to let you know they are. My mother fell in love with her right away. She leaned in when Vanessa spoke, and I could see it. How she found humor in all stories, even the dull ones. Margaret had never given me that kind of glance. She was usually stiff with me, judgmental, as if I served as a constant reminder of what she didn't want to see in herself. I thought I was being overly sensitive. That wedding showed differently. The location was stunning. There are white roses everywhere. A gentle violin melody drifts through the atmosphere, flickering candlelight from gold-rimmed glasses. Everyone wore outfits straight out of a magazine. Then there was me. Every time I sat down, I tried not to wrinkle my dress. I was adjusting my one pair of heels. I prayed Ethan wouldn't get anything on his tiny tie and shirt, but he seemed so proud. With his collar adjusted, he inquired, "Do I look grown up?" I said to him, "You look like the man of the hour." I meant it too. I grinned as the night wore on, nodded, struck up a conversation. Jokes that I didn't find amusing made me chuckle. I raised my head. Even though Vanessa's friends gave me a few glances, I was making it through, right up until that mic moment, and everything I had managed to keep together, including my pride, my poise, and the years of acting, fell apart. It was like daggers of laughter. And everything changed when I noticed something in Ethan's eyes. Don't be afraid. Not misunderstanding, but defense. He would not allow them to make fun of me. Not without a word. He then got up and moved in the direction of the stage. Additionally, I simply held my breath while I sat there. As I watched Ethan approach the platform, my heart fell. I initially assumed he was simply perplexed. I might go get a napkin, or just listen to the music. Or God, I'm not even sure. I wished he would simply return to the table, that this moment would be over, so I could pretend I hadn't just been humiliated in front of 100 people by melting into my chair. But he continued to walk, slow, with a purpose. Every tiny knock on the gleaming wood floor felt like an unstoppable countdown. People became aware. Some swiveled around in their chairs. Someone muttered, "Is that her kid?" Every look was tearing through my skin. I partially got up. I reached out halfway, thinking that perhaps I could call him back without creating a disturbance. I whispered, "Ethan," in a tense, hardly audible voice, "Come back here." He didn't even look back, though. Vanessa had just gone on the stage, and I simply ascended the 2 steps. Like a trophy she hadn't earned, her bouquet was now sitting on the edge of the table. The DJ bent over to give him a little prod. "Hey, buddy, this isn't—" However, Jason remarked, lifting a hand from his chair, "Let him speak." Everyone was watching that. My darling, now, my adorable, uncoordinated, and Minecraft-mad 8-year-old was standing in front of a microphone, both hands clutching the stand as if it were keeping him in check. The tall white roses behind him made him appear very tiny. However, I thought he was 10 feet tall because of the way he carried himself. The room fell silent. Margaret even set down her flute of champagne. Vanessa's face stiffened as she turned slowly, even though she had been preoccupied with pretending to laugh at something. One of her bridesmaids murmured, Then he started talking. I know something about the bride, he replied. As simple as that. Don't shake. Don't stutter. I could hardly hear the silence in the room because my heart was beating so loudly. I had clammy hands. I have a dry mouth. Like it was trying to claw its way out, my pulse thudded against my throat. I pleaded with myself not to say anything embarrassing. Don't say something he'll regret, please. Don't make this worse, please. However, there was something about his voice. Be calm, ambiguous, sincere, caused the entire room to freeze. Vanessa's grin wavered. Her eyebrows went up as she leaned forward. She said politely, "What are you talking about, sweetheart?" Her voice had become tighter, though, a fracture in the ceramic. Ethan disregarded her. He gave me a fleeting glance. I was able to see everything behind his eyes at that very instant. His perplexity. He was protective. His rage. Something else. Something strong and silent. Conviction. Then he turned back to face the visitors. He remarked, "I heard her say something." Before the wedding. Like a sudden rush of chilly air, gasps swept across the room. Vanessa's expression changed, just a little. However, I managed to catch it. That moment of panic. I was immobile. The floor underneath me seemed to vanish. It was as though the whole room was frozen in the instant before everything fell apart. What did he hear? Was all I could think. I had spent the entire day with Ethan. He hadn't been by himself with Vanessa, had he? Then I recalled. I had sent him to locate the bathroom earlier that afternoon while I assisted Jason in tying his boutonniere. 5 minutes. It only required that. Something must have been overheard. The quiet was as delicate as glass. Nobody breathed. Nobody made a move. Ethan was on the verge of dropping something that would break everything. I had the impression that I was submerged. Everything slowed, including the flickering lights, the sounds surrounding me, and even the tense shuffle of people shifting in their seats. I could only hear my own heartbeat thumping like a drum in my ears, alerting me to something significant, something that cannot be undone. Even now, Ethan remained at the microphone, tiny hands clutching the stand. He had a furrowed brow, the type he acquired when he was focused, such as when he attempted to answer a challenging math issue or beat a challenging level in a video game. It wasn't a game, though. I was having trouble breathing. There was a part of me that wanted to run up there and drag him away, remind him that fixing this was not his responsibility, that I could manage it because I was the grown-up, that my survival had been worse. I had scarcely, perhaps. However, the other side of me, which was still hurting from the laughing and still stung by the betrayal, knew I couldn't stop him. Because Ethan had decided something, and his expression showed it to me. He was getting to his feet. For me, for himself, for us. He cleared his throat, and even that little sound reverberated in the quietest environment I had ever been in. He whispered, "Before the wedding began, I was searching for the restroom." He took another longer look at me. He didn't seek permission with his face. The message was straightforward. You taught me to tell the truth. I'm simply following your instructions. I immediately used the edge of my napkin to wipe away the tear that had just fallen down my cheek. I couldn't be certain if it was fear, pride, or both. I walked past this room, he said, and I heard Vanessa talking to one of her friends. Vanessa moved around in her chair. She opened her mouth a little as if to interrupt. However, she didn't. Perhaps she was unable to. Perhaps she knew what was going to happen. Ethan's voice remained steady. She said she didn't really want to marry Uncle Jason. You can hear the gasps now. A fork was dropped. Two of the guests sat up straight, as if they had just been shaken awake. She said, Ethan went on, that she needed someone stable who'd give her a house and wouldn't question her when she goes out late, and that Jason would be too nice to ever say no. Like smoke from a fire that no one knew had begun, the words lingered in the air. Vanessa froze. All eyes were on Ethan. Mouth hardly moves. That's not true, she whispered. However, nobody appeared to hear or give a damn. Ethan stopped, and I felt sick to my stomach. I sensed it was coming. What it was, I had no idea. However, I sensed it. And he said, that once they were married, she'd make sure people like my mom never showed up again. That was it. There was complete quiet in the room. Not taken aback, not interested. There was a heavy hush, similar to grief, or embarrassment, or reality. Ethan gave Vanessa a direct glance, then back to Jason. And lastly, the visitors, he went on to say, she said my mom was embarrassing. But she's not. She is nice. She is courageous. She works really hard. She also never criticizes anyone. At the end, his voice cracked a little. An emotion caused my chest to sag. What occurred next didn't matter to me. Who believed him was irrelevant to me. Or who attempted to hide it. Because my son did something that most grown adults wouldn't dare do on that wedding stage at that same moment. He was honest. Unbeknownst to him, he completely flipped the night around. Silence did not simply descend on the room. It went cold. Nobody made a move. Nobody breathed. After Ethan's comments detonated like a grenade in the center of that immaculate, well-maintained wedding hall, it seemed as though time itself held its breath. Vanessa had lost her smile long ago. Her lips were parted in shock, her face now pallid. She surveyed the space, looking, perhaps someone should stand up for her. Perhaps to crawl into a hole. Neither did she discover. Slowly Jason stood up. Not in a hurry. Not in a big way. Like a man attempting to regain his balance amid an unexpected storm. Ethan, he murmured in a strained voice. Can you come here, bud? Calm as ever, Ethan nodded and approached him. Jason stooped, said something that I was unable to hear, then encircled him with his arms. A long, close embrace. Then it dawned on me. Jason wasn't upset. He was broken. He stood up straight once again. He looked around the crowd as if he was unsure of his whereabouts. At last, he turned to face Vanessa. He inquired, "You said that?" A cracked voice, exactly at the center. Vanessa blinked quickly, tried to get better, made an effort to grin. It appeared more like a grimace, though. Come on, Jason, he's a kid. Are you going to trust a child more than your fiancé? He didn't respond. She continued, this is absurd. I was merely making jokes with my pals. Girls talk like that before weddings, you know? We let out our frustrations. We make foolish statements. He's 8, so he most likely misunderstood. With every sentence, her voice grew louder. The visitors, however, didn't buy it. The change in the air was palpable to me. A half-hour later, those who had laughed with her were now muttering behind uplifted palms, looking at each other. They shook their heads. Then, I heard a voice from the back of the room say something I will never forget. I heard her too. People turned. Rachel was the one, an old acquaintance of Jason's, someone who had disappeared when Vanessa entered the scene. Rachel got to her feet. She clenched her hands at her sides. To get Vanessa her shoes, I entered the bridal suite. She failed to notice me. However, she said precisely what Ethan had said. Word for word. The air broke. Vanessa's expression twisted, torn between panic and anger. Oh my God. On my wedding night, are you all really treating me like this? Now, however, she was the only one speaking. Jason appeared heartbroken. He was still sinking, like if the floor had been ripped out from under him. He's still getting his bearings. He muttered, I asked you so many times to Vanessa. I inquired about your affection for me. If you were certain, and you continued to say yes. Vanessa's face became softer. She attempted to grasp his hand, but he took a step back. Jason, she said. He shook his head. Nevertheless, I don't know what's true anymore, he replied. However, I am aware that my nephew wasn't merely making something up. Furthermore, I am aware that my sister never merited the treatment we gave her. I felt his words pierce me like lightning. Sharp, unexpected, and dazzling. I was seen by someone for the first time all night. Vanessa did not weep or shout. She remained still for a while. After that, they turned and left the room. The sound of heels clicking on the tile grew louder and louder until it was no longer heard. Once more silence. Then there was a clap. Only one individual. Then another. Then everyone in the room was cheering. Not too loud. Not crazy. But steady. Actual. Not for Vanessa. Not for Jason. For Ethan, however, when no one else would, you spoke the truth. I just sat there sobbing into my napkin with my hand over my mouth. Because in some way, my son restored my voice during the most embarrassing and public time of my life. After then, I don't recall much of what transpired. The cheers were a haze. As if unsure of what to do next, people began to stand up, mumbling and moving toward their tables or the bar. The evening of the fairy tale had fallen apart, and something lingering in the air, raw and terribly genuine, took its place. Eventually, Jason arrived. I got up and tried to collect myself while blotting away uncontrollable tears. And I waited to see what would happen next. However, he initially remained silent. He simply drew me into an embrace. An actual one. Close. Long. The type that you offer someone after you finally had a clear view of them. He mumbled, "I'm sorry," into my shoulder. God, Claire, I'm so sorry. I let go at that point. For a moment only. I put my arms around him. Years of hurt and separation squeezed between us like a piece of glass that had finally broken. I wasn't sure if everything would be well after that. However, I was aware of this. At last, he noticed me, and I never imagined receiving that much. Ethan and I sat in the car in the almost deserted parking lot later that evening. Behind us, the venue was dimly lit. I checked the rearview mirror for him. Sleep had softened his small face. He has taken off his suit jacket. The bow tie is slack. Sweat-soaked curls from the night's stress. "You okay, baby?" I said tactfully. Slowly he nodded. "Yeah, are you?" I was more affected by that question than by everything that was said at the wedding. My response was, "I think I am. I think I'm really okay." After a brief period of silence, he said, "You're not a discount model. You're the best mommy in the world." Once more tears came. However, they didn't sting this time. They were warm, restoring. After a lengthy period of oppressive heat, it feels like rain. As usual, I tucked him into bed that night. However, I waited a bit longer than normal. I gave him a forehead kiss. His hair was smoothed back, and muttered, "I'm so proud of you, Ethan. You were so brave." Half sleepy, he grinned. "You taught me." And suddenly, everything changed. I used to feel inferior because I was a single mother, as if my existence were stamped with the words, "returned." Ruined. Not quite enough. However, it was not how my son saw me, and he reminded me of something I had forgotten when he spoke up to defend me in front of an adult-filled room. "I'm not weak. I'm not damaged. I'm only a person. I've also survived longer than most people." In the end, Jason decided to postpone the honeymoon. "I need time to think," he said. A few days later, we had a real conversation, and I sensed that our relationship was getting back on track. Slowly, gently, not flawlessly. But really, Margaret never expressed regret. A week later, she texted me cold. "I'm sure you understand things got out of hand. Hope you're doing well." I didn't respond, and I didn't require her approval for the first time in my life. Since I had Ethan, I also had myself. Weddings are said to bring families together. This one, it removed the mask, and for that, I am thankful. That night, I didn't lose anything. I became clear, truth came to me, and I developed a sense of pride that no expensive gown or well-groomed appearance could ever provide. It turns out that the label that was scratched wasn't mine. While others sold their integrity for a low price, I was the one who maintained it. And it was an 8-year-old child clutching my hand in a clip-on tie that made me think of it. Thus, that is the tale of how my kid, a courageous and attractive 8-year-old, stood up at a wedding and made a huge difference. In a few words only, a great deal of heart too. In the end, Claire didn't need to fight back with anger, because the truth spoke for her. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is standing tall with grace, while others crumble in their own dishonor. Healing begins when we choose peace over bitterness and strength over shame. If you're carrying hurt, remember your silence can speak volumes, and your growth is louder than revenge. Have you ever been betrayed by someone close, but chose to rise above it? Share your story in the comments. How did you find your peace, and what helped you hold on to your dignity?